When you're at the stage of your first wild encounters in the earliest routes of Red and Blue, or you're a battle-hardened veteran of many years and metagames who sees Landorus Therian in your dreams, there's one thing explicitly clear about a Pokemon battle. It's all about damage. Pokemon does damage with move, as the old net battle crowd used to say. To win the game, do more damage to your opponent than they do to you.
I wonder if this is this still active? Because I know this was an older client. I wonder if this is still active as a client. I'd love to play it.
Battle crowd used to say. To win the game, do more damage to your opponent than they do to you.
You don't say!
So how does one do damage? When we play in-game, we intuitively learn that we want strong Pokemon with strong moves. Charizard using Flamethrower is better than Charmander using Ember. And sure, there are other things to consider, like the type chart, namely, as well as things like status conditions, weather, and so on. To say nothing of all the ways damage can be dealt indirectly, which could be its own video. However, when you get down to it, it is always in some way all about the direct damage Pokemon.
Cursula, my beloved. I actually unironically love Cursula. It is precious, baby.
Can dish out. Each metagame begins by examining what the most effective offensive threats are, and everything else is a response to that. For example, Stall was powerful in Diamond and Pro, but to build Stall, one must be aware of the metagame's foremost threats that offensive teams will be running, while offensive teams running those offensive threats are dictating their responses and so on. In Diamond and
So, I mean, to put it bluntly, you have to know the meta that you're playing in. Like, if you're playing Sword and Shield, like, towards the end, right? Like, Zacian Kyogre was everywhere. Zacian Kyogre was... There were so many teams. Zacian was a very good, heavy-hitting physical side, had a very good offensive typing. You had Kyogre with Drizzle that could set himself up. Kyogre puts on a Choice Specs, Water Spouts, just massive fucking numbers. Or, for example, you go back to Gen 2. I mean, you're gonna see Snorlax in Gen 2. You're gonna see Raikou. You're gonna see Zapdos. You just have to adjust to whatever you're playing.
Pro's case, it was all about Garchomp, as well as other monsters like Infernape. That's because when the games came out, the player base immediately searched for the strongest, most threatening Pokemon around, the ones with the fewest responses. However, as this video will demonstrate, the strongest Pokemon are not always the most threatening. If that was the case, we'd be playing a pointlessly simple game. It'd just be a matter of selecting Pokemon with the highest attacking stats, with no regard for other stats, typing, ability, move pool, or a million other factors, and being done with it. Here's a quick example. Take the Pokemon with the highest attacking stat in the game, Mega Mewtwo Y's base special attack of 194, which translates to a literal stat of a jaw-dropping 535 with a modest nature and max special attack. Now let's put this Mega Mewtwo Y in Psychic Terrain, so its stab psychic moves will hit even harder. Let's also break the rules and give it choice specs. And let's break the rules some more and make its ability adaptability. Let's put it up against a psychic weak opponent, one with not much bulk, like Infernape. For good measure, we'll give Infernape a minus special defense nature, and finally we'll give Infernape -6 special defense. At this point of hilarious overkill, surely it doesn't even matter what the base power of Mewtwo's chosen psychic move is, right?
But
even
it does.
A base power of 1 would send Infernape not just to the moon, but to another galaxy? Yeah, not quite. This one base power psychic move coming off of the highest special attack in the game that's boosted to even more astronomical levels by choice specs, adaptability, and psychic terrain, hitting a psychic weak opponent with pitiful bulk and -6 special defense would do a whopping 20 to 24%. It would take...
No, the move is also important. So, for example, right, where you have, like, Confusion early game, right? It will just still stick with Psychic and Mewtwo, right? You have Confusion early game, which has, like, what, 60 power, if that? I think it's, like, 40, and then you have like Psybeam, which is like 60, and then you go up to Psychic, which is, I can't remember if they know, I think it's still 90. I know in Gen 3 it was 90 at the very least, 90 base power. Like, it's also why there's an argument between Stone for rock types, right? Stone, I thought it was 80, I could have swore it was 90. Maybe it was 90 in the older generations. It's why we have, for rock types, like Tyranitar is a prime example of this. And even Landorus T, for an example, even though it doesn't get stabbed, you have your Stone Edge, which is a base 120 power. It doesn't have 100 accuracy, though, so you have to be cognizant of that. And, it's single target versus Rock Slide, which is a 30% chance to flinch. It has a base 70, I believe, base 70 power, and hits 2 targets. So generally better for VGC. However, each of them have a use case. That being said, there's a clear reason why people are going to use Psychic and people are not going to use Confusion in a Smogon VGC competitive basis, right? There's a reason why people are using Earthquake if they can versus something like Dig. Now that technically is a different argument altogether, and then that goes into the funny theory of just every move in Pokemon is just a variation of Dig. Oh my god, I don't even know where the source of that was. If you know where the source of that is in the YouTube comments, please like link me to that. I fucking love that meme. But like the power of the move does matter. Like effectively, yeah, you can have a maxed out, everything coded maxed out, right? But have a 20 base power move, and you're, in this case, 1 base power move, right? You're hitting 20% even with all those buffs and debuffs on you and the opponent.
5 hits from Mega Mewtwo Y to KO Infernape if this were
There's a lot of moving parts.
Power of 2. Would that do it? Nope, 60 to 70%. Infernape could live the hit even with Stealth Rock and Spikes up, and most likely live Sandstorm afterwards. What about a base power of 3? Even that wouldn't do it. It deals 79 to 94%, a roll that doesn't even favor it to get the KO with Stealth Rock up. It's not until a base power of 4 that Mega Mewtwo Y can get the KO, and even that still isn't guaranteed. It will only get the job done 15 out of 16 times. That's right, even this comically overblown threat needs the attacks to have actual base power. And clearly we have found the solution to bring Mewtwo into OU. Nerf the strength of its attacks. You're welcome. Jokes aside, this is obviously a ridiculously extreme example, but it gets our point across. Power, or at least one facet of it, isn't everything. We can make a similar yet opposite example of some move with 1,000,000 base power doing no damage if used by Shuckle, Happiny, or Caterpie. But you may protest, this is silly. What about huge base stats in conjunction with huge base power attacks? We're glad you theoretically asked this, because that brings us to a very special Pokemon with which we will illustrate this point in practical terms as we present to you the Rampardos Theorem.
There it is. He said it. He said it! I want this plush. That actually is based. I low-key love Rampardos. I might actually need to get art of Kip riding a Rampardos at some point, because that actually sounds based. Like, I love him. I really love him, unironically. He's not good, but I love him.
Rampardos doesn't need any made-up examples to achieve stupefying
one of my favorites, absolutely.
Power. It packs an absurd base 165 attack stat, which, by comparison, makes the likes of Groudon and Rayquaza look like UU Pokemon. It's certainly not left wanting for powerful attacks.
It's massive.
Its strongest stab is Head Smash, which possesses a mind-boggling 150 base power. Again, much stronger than any stab Groudon or Rayquaza can drum up. It is as automatic and instantly delete the opposing Pokemon button as it sounds. Even something as naturally bulky as Mew is KO'd more often than not from full health, and that's before considering how Rampardos can boost itself. Choice band for instantaneous absurdity, or Swords Dance for truly incomprehensible levels of savagery, especially since it can be paired with another boosting option in Life Orb. So with this truly obscene level of power, why is Rampardos not only not good, but one of the worst Pokemon in the game?
From my understanding, it actually comes down to his stats, and he might be getting into this. This is me kind of speculating a little bit. So if we look at Rampardos, the reason it doesn't have great defensive typing, but that's completely fine because it is, for all intents and purposes, an offensive Pokemon. And his HP stat isn't even that bad. 97's really not bad. It's honestly the speed that's become the issue. And for me, I know I was trying to toy around with maybe a Jolly set, or even if I went Adamant, like Whimsicott Tailwind is my Pokemon. It is my favorite Pokemon. If I can have it on a team in a generation, I will have Tailwind, Whimsicott, Prankster, Whimsicott in a team. Like that is Kip's Pokemon. I mean, obviously that would only get you up to 116 speed. I mean, at that point you're starting to favor. And that being said, even then, like the defense, like 50 special defense, like a Kyogre sneezes on you and you're dead. You get threats like Blastoise, Clauncher, etc. Even on the defensive side, I mean, you can have just a fucking Machamp even, right? Just use fucking Break on you and you're going to be hurting. I think it does come down to Rampardos is great as it specializes in a singular thing, and it even has a good move in Rockhead. It's that its stats ended up failing it, and that while number was good, numbers can't be the only thing that's good. If I had to summarize that,
everything else about it is
no, it's not
bad.
Trick Room. No,
it is a great way to see all the nuances in Pokemon.
Why not just use something else?
Often take for granted. Rampardos is terribly slow and pathetically frail. This is a death sentence for pretty much any Pokemon, and it doesn't matter how monstrously overwrought your attacking stats are. If you can't outspeed anything and you can't take a hit, you're going to get shellacked at every corner. Especially since Rampardos' mono rock typing means it's riddled with weaknesses to some of the most common attacks attack types.
Cannot take a hit.
Water, fighting, and ground. Even its steel weakness is relevant. What about Choice Scarf or Rock Polish to fix up that speed, you might ask? Well, Rampardos is still slow even with them. Number 1 and number 2, it's so bad defensively that it struggles to switch in or get a free turn against much of anything.
Right.
Rampardos is never ever left wanting for power, but is always left wanting for everything, anything else. As such, it is the poster Pokemon for the concept of power not being everything.
Right. No! Not the plushie!
Of course, this isn't just a video about Rampardos, it is the Rampardos Theorem, meaning it can theoretically be applied to other Pokemon. So next up, we will examine a
and other games as well, if this goes the way I'm thinking.
duo of Pokemon that are monstrously threatening. However, they are held back by their abilities, slacking and...
Bro, all I'm saying is Regigigas got done dirty, and I want Pokemon to fix him. Like... Even so, hear me out. Here's how I think we fix Regigigas. We go in with the whole trope of them making more Regis. Give it a hidden ability, because it doesn't have a hidden ability yet. Give Regigigas a hidden ability if there are 5 other Regi Pokemon in the team, right? So at this point, because we have 5 others, wait, Regirock, Registeel, Regice, Regieleki, Regidrago, right? Slap it on the same team. You assemble Voltron and he doesn't get Slow Start. Even if it's just like Slow Start doesn't apply, right? Which, I mean, having a hidden ability wouldn't even apply anyways. Like, you could give this fucking thing Insomnia and it'd be so much better.
Regigigas. If these 2 Pokemon had a competitively useless ability, like Illuminate,
no,
it
it
would be top tier. However, in what seems to be a case of Game Freak engaging in a case of active Schadenfreude, that's particularly sadistic even by their cruel standards. They are instead relegated to the bottom of the barrel, situated at the bottom of a pile of barrels. Without their abilities, Slacking and Regigigas would use their monstrous attack and speed stats in conjunction with move pools that leave them...
I mean, but people do this. In Gen's, I almost said Gen 7. Gen 8, right? When we were running Sir Weezing, as I call him, Galarian Weezing, we were running Neutralizing Gas to get rid of Regigigas' ability. Yeah, he was a monster, but it wasn't an unbeatable team by any means. There were outs to that team. That team did have genuine weaknesses, and if you caught the Weezing, right, there were ways that you could just also reset the slow start. It was not unbeatable by any means. It was powerful. It was a strong option, but it wasn't the option. Unlike something like Dodonzo Tatsugir. And I think Walking Wake now actually does it with Dodonzo because it's coded, I think, as Dragon Water, right? If I remember correctly. So Kingdra, Walking Wake would fulfill this. I mean, there's Golden Go. Stuff like that is just so... good as choices. Even then, like, let's take the case of Golden Go, who I disagree being in VGC because I think he's too powerful. I personally think he doesn't fit the power scaling of VGC, but I mean, I feel someone like Wolf Glick would be about a little bit, or even Aaron Cybertron Zhang, right? I think they'd be a little more qualified to comment on that. From a casual perspective, I don't think Golden Go should be in it. Slacking and Regigigas, I almost forgot his name, don't even hit Golden Go. Like, so it's a non-issue to them.
Wanting for nothing to shred through many other Pokemon. They're so dangerous that their usually meager normal typing would be overlooked. Slacking, however, is turned into the biggest sitting duck in the game after it attacks, thanks to its appalling crippling truant. It means a free turn for absolutely everything. It's also completely ruined by one of the most common...
Look at that Jolteon sprite.
And Ruby Sapphire.
Can we go back to this? Can we go back to these sprites? Like, I'm kind of over the 3D at this point, the 3D models. Can we just go back to sprites? Like, they're so vivid. They have so much personality. Like, I want this
Fire
shit.
200, a metagame where Slacking was actually decent in. If you were weak to its moves, you just slapped
gotcha.
some Pokemon and went from being destroyed by it to having no problem with...
So, chat, fun fact about Jolteon. Did you know Jolteon is the...
whatsoever, even welcoming its useless exploitable presence. Slacking doesn't do so hot against Substitute either. It's
no,
for
absolutely
a
not.
Turn, maybe, and after that, your opponent
Protect
is glad
beats
to
Truant.
Regigigas, meanwhile, can't even threaten anything to begin with, but at least it can potentially wait out Slow Start, right? Well, not only is 5 turns a long time to even get
resets.
going, 5 turns you're realistically never going to get against a halfway competent opponent. By the way, let's just assume. But when you switch out, which you will, then Slow Start will activate again when you...
There we go. If he didn't mention it, which FSG, you are really good at your job. If for some reason you ever see this, first of all, why do more people not react to your content? Because this is actually fucking gold. Like, I'm just gonna throw that out there right now. Actually fucking gold. More people need to react to your content. Second, thank you for doing what you do. You're absolutely invaluable as a resource. Third, this is what I'm talking about. He says the things. If he wasn't gonna mention it, I was going to mention it. The way Slow Start is coded is that, say, for example, your opponent whirlwinds you, and you're like, oh, I got 4 out of 5 turns done. Oh man, one more turn and slow start's getting out of here, baby! And they fucking whirlwind you, and you come out, you're like, oh, I have 1 turn left. No. Slow start is coded that if you swap out and you swap back in, the timer will reset. So, fun fact.
Switch back in later. There's a reason why our videos on Slack King and Regigigas are asking the question how bad they were, actually.
Bad.
Because they were really, really bad. In the realm of self-ruining abilities, we must give a special mention to Archeops, whose defeatist ability ranks up there among the worst of the game. However, Archeops is more able to work around it and has had a solid lower-tier career as a result. That said, on day 1 of Generation 5, it was one of the most fearsome-looking threats, until the translation came in and its ability was explained. As such, it's like Slack King and Regigigas in the what could have been category.
Bro, oh my god, if Doc was in the chat, I'm sure Doc could explain. In Yu-Gi-Oh, this has happened as well, where you look at something and you're like, dude, this is gonna be cracked. This is gonna be meta. This is going to be defining. And then we get the translation and you're just like, oh my god, this is garbage.
Category of would-be threat.
Oh, your opponent definitely messed up if they give you the 5 turns. Like, they should have lost at that point.
Demonstrate that not all of Pokemon that fall under the Rampardos Theorem are this extreme either.
Right.
Not all of them are pathetically useless. The
See?
Rampardos Theorem isn't
Xurkitree.
just about Pokemon that seem terrifying but are actually awful.
Guys, did you know Xurkitree got nerfed going out of Gen 7? It does not get Tail Glow starting in Sword and Shield. If you have a Xurkitree in Sun and Moon, it is the only Xurkitrees that can learn Tail Glow. And I'm forever pissed off because I want my Tail Glow alien Christmas tree.
It's more about showing that even Pokemon's strongest powerhouses need to consider the nuances and
Deontay, my beloved.
This is illustrated
Don't
with
actually
a pair
own
of
Deontay.
monstrous special attackers, Porygon Z and Xurkitree.
Right.
Now, these Pokemon have quite decent competitive histories. However, it's nothing compared to what was expected of them based on the initial hype surrounding their staggering power. Not only are these two incredibly naturally strong with enormous special attack stats and powerful stabs, but they also possess a litany of ways to boost themselves further beyond just choice specs. Porygon Z has 2 outstanding abilities that make it stronger, download and adaptability, and even has access to Nasty Plot. With Life Orb, nothing was going to feel comfortable taking hits from it, not even Blissey. Meanwhile, Xurkitree's special attack makes Porygon Z's look measly. It has an even better boosting move in the form of Tail Glow. It has a
had H-A-D, and it makes me sad to this day because Pokemon hates me, allegedly.
that move that actually hit Pokemon super effectively, and its ability Beast Boost makes it even more powerful after it grabs a KO, so you don't even feel comfortable sacrificing something against it. Well, on paper anyway. While these two are never unable to rip through opposing teams, they are also unable to withstand opposing hits. They aren't slow, but their defensive typing isn't good, and while they're not exactly true glass cannons, they're certainly not bulky either. This is a common case of Pokemon balance. The Pokemon that hit the hardest are often unable to withstand opposing hits. When
Bulu, I remember you.
Can be catastrophic. See Zacian Crowns. This is also why even defensive teams often employ a faster Pokemon. Against super strong threats like these, the sturdiest walls in the game aren't going to be able to stand up against them. So it's best to reinforce one's defenses not by doubling down on walling, but by being able to out-offense them.
Okay, so because you mentioned it, FSG, let's actually look at Zacian Crown. Zacian base, I called the Zacian, Zamazenta and Zacian, I called both of them going to be cracked on like day one. Because look at, even in base, that fucking speed stat is insane, combined with their abilities. I actually called it wrongly. I thought Zamazenta was actually going to be the better Pokemon to use, but so I got that one wrong, which Kip is not infallible, I will say that. I thought it was going to go certain ways that it did not. However, we got a Crowned, so that you want to know the reason why it works other than it being an Uber, because this could have like 100 points less, and because of how it functions, one, it's got the proper stat distribution. Like, you're not going to, when are you going to use special attacking as a Zacian Crowned, right? Like, there's just incentive, you could make this 100, right? I mean, 100, 105, 105, so you're already at minus 70 at that point. You're at a 630. Like, but it still would see use, especially because even if you made this 100, right? You have Intrepid Sword giving you a single stage, right? So you don't really care if your effect gets negated under like Galarian Wheezing. So your effect goes off, it's triggered as soon as it comes in. Bam, you're done. You got that phase. Perfect, awesome, good to go. Like, it's the distribution for Zacian just fucking worked. And that was the issue, because one, it had great typing. It had incredible offensive typing. Steel a little bit defensive as well. So you had some defensive typing as well, where you had, fire and ground are your weaknesses. I don't know where Clodsire go. God, I love Clodsire so much. But in comparison to... wrong window. Comparison to Xurkitree, comparison to Porygon Z, there's just no fucking contest. They're just distributed way worsely.
Porygon Z and Xurkitree, no thanks. Out-offensing them, no problem. And we continue rising through the tier ranks, this time showcasing how the Rampardos Theorem can be applied even to OU Pokemon. Just like how PZ and Xurkitree were decent, yet not overwhelming as they were.
Once again, let's look at Xurkitree. 173 special attack, awesome. Got past tense tail glow, awesome. Everything else here is garbage, though. That attack needs to be like a fucking 60. It's because it's so mediocre in everything except it's one thing. It is the master of one. You know, jack of all trades, master of none, but it is still better than a master of none. Or, master of one. Yeah, words, verbiage. But you see the difference there between these two. Yes, it's cracked in this regard, but everything else is so mediocre. I mean, it's got anything with ground weakness as well. You have to inherently look at and say, okay, but why should I run you? Why do I have to? Why should I justify running you to me? Because Landorus exists, Earthquakes exist, Earth Power exists. Ground is just incredibly strong as a typing. You have to be able to justify to me why it's worth running you. But that's me, and we're getting into a different conversation.
Were first to be expected. These next Pokemon too failed to live up to the day one hype of being overwhelmed by their stats. This is a duel of dragon types beautifully emblematic of Generation 5 as a whole. Haxorus and Kyurem Black. Kyurem Black didn't exist when Generation 5 came out. All eyes were on Haxorus then.
Black and White
struggled to contain Salamence in the generation prior, sending it to Ubers not 2 months before Black and White were released, and reportedly had nightmares at the prospect of this new dragon type, not just packing Dragon Dance as well, but even Source Dance. It even had an ability, Mold Breaker, that let it destroy Bronzong, a would-be resist to the Dragon Ground combination. Mold Breaker ignored Levitate and let
Mold Breaker go burn!
Earthquake. Its speed stat was quite decent too, and it could even take a hit surprisingly well. Of course, Haxorus was never banned or even close to it. It was a solid part of OU. The reason it wasn't banned despite its over-the-top attacking potential was, you guessed it, not being that fast in the lightning quick Gen 5 metagame.
No.
Not exactly being difficult to KO for these faster, stronger adversaries either. Then in Black and White 2, Kyurem Black was unbanned to much controversy and replaced Haxorus as OU's resident banded outrage spamming dragon. Its attack stat was the second highest in the game at the time, and it's
from my understanding, Kyurem White was at base level inherently better. I would have to... Actually, I think FSG actually has videos on them. We'll get to them at some point. It makes great AM content because it makes my brain work. I thought Kyurem White was inherently the better one because of typing. Also because of some of the moves it got. I also hit on the special side of the spectrum. I do like Kyurem Black, though. Like, I like the design. I liked the Kyurem fusion designs.
Outrage thus performed absurd feats, like potentially 2-hit KOing Ferrothorn with Stealth Rock. Kyurem Black also packed Fusion Bolt, which ensured that, unlike Haxorus, it couldn't be won by
Gen 5. I need to play through it again.
Kyurem Black is a particularly excessive example of the Rampardos Theorem because it was initially perceived as so strong it started in Ubers. Then it was unbanned in OU, and nobody could consider it broken in the fast-paced metagame, which effortlessly exploited its many weaknesses. Kyurem's partial ice typing, while nice for making it neutral to opposing ice moves, was also quite the hindrance, as it most notably made it weak to Stealth Rock and fighting moves, which meant its naturally high bulk wasn't that useful in practice. Still a great Pokemon, but certainly not the literal Uber it had been before. In a similar vein, we must give a mention to Darmanitan. Enormous power not just from its huge base attack and staff Flare Blitz that hit many common Pokemon super effectively, but also from its sheer force ability and from the permanent sunlight support it got from Ninetales' Drought. However, while feared at first, Darmanitan's flaws, incredible frailty, and a Stealth Rock weakness meant that, in practice, it wasn't quite as fearsome as it seemed on paper, though there was, of course, little more enjoyable than one-hit KOing something with a resisted Flare Blitz.
Right. I'm trying to find a specific thing. Restaurant!
Finally, we go to the Uber tier to show that the Rampardos Theorem is applicable regardless of the metagame. This is abundantly clear in the case of Reshiram. Reshiram is the Uber's version of Rampardos.
So I mean, I was right. Like, it was inherently better at base. Interesting.
Much so that
I love Palkia!
Video, the Rampardos.
If someone has interesting teams around Palkia, actually, please send them to the Pokemon channel on the server, because I really want to make Palkia work. Also, Giratina. Like, I genuinely I need to get more experience in Pokemon under my belt. It's the same thing as in Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now. I'm actually intending to do training montages in certain aspects, so I have to actually learn my new branded Despia deck I just bought and got in. Oh my god, don't ask how much my fucking Bistal Lubellion cost. It hurt. Like, training montage on I have to just get better at the game. I'm bad at running it now because I don't know the matchups and stuff.
Theorem. Reshiram has
Love
all the
Palkia,
power
100%.
it could ever ask for. 2 incredible stab moves whose typings complement each other.
I love him.
From a
I think
huge
defensive
base
has
special
great
attack stat.
potential.
Its Fire Stab is, of course, boosted further by Groudon Sun, too. Additionally, its Turbo Blaze ability means that you can't use Heatran to resist the stab combination, either, as its Flash Fire gets ignored and Blue Flare blows it apart. Did Kyogre want to switch in and replace the Sun with Rain? Reshiram's Stab Draco Meteor had something to say about that. It was just about nothing Reshiram can't destroy. This much has always been clear, and it was thus one of the most hyped new additions to the Uber tier upon its appearance in Generation 5. This, however, didn't last very long, as it became clear you wouldn't want to use Reshiram if you were serious about winning. So why is it that Reshiram has been one of the worst Ubers for so long? Well, being outclassed by Kyurem White certainly had something to do with it. But Reshiram was a shining example of the Rampardos Theorem before Kyurem White even existed. Its flaws cast a shadow over its virtues that was so long, it may as well have been an eclipse. Reshiram wasn't fast enough to make up for how badly it was destroyed by Stealth Rock and most attacks in the metagame. Even its solid natural bulk couldn't help with its weaknesses to Dragon and Earthquake, and not even at least being resistant to water like most other dragons. Its counterpart Zekrom, for example, got a lot further in large part thanks to its rocks neutrality and water resistances, which let it make the most of that nice natural bulk. Reshiram's longevity issues were compounded by things like Protect, Scouting's Choice Spec sets, or hurting itself to be able to switch moves with Life Orb. As a result, even something it completely destroyed like Ferrothorn could irritate it. No matter how you tried to run it, Reshiram would never be as successful as its nigh unmatched offensive potential would suggest. And as such, it's the highest example of the Rampardos Theorem.
No!
So in conclusion, good strategy will beat sheer power pretty much every time. If something's so strong that it nullifies the need for strategy, it goes through Ubers because it makes the game pointless. There's no strategy if you can just click the strongest buttons without repercussion. That's why the strongest Pokemon in the game, such as those we've mentioned in the video, are balanced by severe weaknesses. Weaknesses so severe and all-consuming that they sometimes relegate them to joke status. And if there are any other Pokemon you believe fall under the Rampardos Theorem, please let us know in the comments. Together, we will make science out of competitive Pokemon. Thanks for watching, everyone.
The fact that was even a thing.
We'll
make science out of competitive Pokemon just amazing because it's so true.
Moved in Pokemon history, so go check that out if you haven't already. So if you have any more suggestions, feel free. We're down to try a lot of things. And thank you so much to our pages for continuing support.
Yes, actually just gave it to Mega Ampharos. Reshiram's Beauty Secrets did, yes. So what I will say is we're actually going. Yeah, we'll leave that playing for a second. So we're gonna take Chin Pao versus Kyurem, right?
Follow my crew on these social media platforms, and that's all I got.
Yeah, less time than I thought I had. Anyways, Chin Pao versus Kyurem Black, right? Both ice types inherently, right? So thus being both ice types, right? They're more offensive. Why is Kyurem Black, I would argue, why is it worse, even at a 700 base stat, worse than Chin Pao? I mean, Chin Pao is kind of I wouldn't even say it's an example of the Rampardos Theorem, because if you look at Kyurem Black stats, right? Base 170, like, this thing is fucking chonker. 95, excellent. However, even with the 570, Sword of Ruin does, what if I remember correctly, lowers defense of all Pokemon except itself. Yes, so Sword of Ruin is going to inherently just lower their defense, and you're going to crack in with that 120 base. Really effective, very effective Dark Ice typing. Very offensive. This thing is not going to survive hits, but it's not really meant to, right? 135 base speed, you're outspeeding a fucking lot of the meta. 120 attack, so effectively strategy, right? You have to strategize how you're going to use a Chin Pao versus I have numbers on board is how I would bring, what I would bring to this argument, I guess, is what you could say. But yeah, no, it's a very interesting theory to say the least.